Well, for this month's Community Matters segment, we are sitting down with the Executive Director of NAMI Idaho, Beth Markley, and Peer Navigator with Optum Idaho, Tyson Hawkins, to discuss two topics, suicide prevention and recovery, which are both recognized in September. Thank you both so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. So, Beth, I want to start with you. NAMI Idaho. Tell us exactly what is NAMI Idaho, and and tell us about the presence in Idaho it has.
Sure. So NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and NAMI Idaho is a statewide organization. We support mental health, education, advocacy, and support groups statewide. We have community presence in 5 communities across the state. And then we also fill in the gaps with support groups and education where needed. So really it's about providing free resources to folks with mental illness, their friends and family members, talking about mental illness and debunking stigma, and then working to put policy in place that support people with mental illness.
Great, very important. Of course, obviously every single month is important for this,
Sure.
but September, one notable, I guess you can say, is September is both Recovery Month and Suicide Prevention Month. So what is NAMI doing to address both issues?
Well, stigma is a big factor in people seeking help when they are dealing with suicidal thoughts or ideation, or they have somebody who is, or if they are looking for recovery options. There are a lot of folks who just tamp that down, and this doesn't happen in my family. They fear job loss or judgment wherever they are. So we're just elevating the conversation about the fact that recovery is possible, that you don't have to suffer alone, that there are resources out there, and somebody wants to talk to you about what's going on, and it's not something to be ashamed about, to have issues. We also want to promote the fact that there's reason for optimism and hope, and if people feel like there is, they're going to reach out and they're going to be proactive in their own mental health.
Great, yeah, very well put. Of course, like you were saying, that communication and being able to know, I can talk about this, I can get this out there, so important. Tyson, how about Optum? What's Optum doing this month?
So Optum Idaho is the managed care organization that is helping the state of Idaho manage the Medicaid contract for behavioral health. So mental health illness and substance abuse, those sorts of things.
Okay, gotcha. So obviously these are things not just in September during Suicide Prevention and Recovery Month, but those are things that Optum is addressing all the time.
Daily, year-round.
Gotcha, perfect. Okay, Beth, let me get back to you. In 2023, the CDC indicated that Idaho, and this is a stat I did not even know, has the 12th highest suicide rate in the U.S., which is, I mean, just a frightening stat. What can be done to reduce that?
Well, there are several things. First of all, understanding that statistic, I mean, it's even more profound for some age groups. Suicide is the leading cause of death, or a leading cause of death for young adults and adolescents. So awareness is an issue. Isolation is an issue. There's, access to resources is an issue. Many of NAMI's resources are free, and one of the things that came out of the pandemic is a lot of our resources went online. So you can access, if you have Wi-Fi or cell service, you can access one of our support groups or a course statewide from anywhere and participate. They're free and confidential. And it's important to recognize that recovery for everybody can take a different path. It can be as individual as the person. The important part is to start that process and reach out with optimism that there is hope and recovery is possible.
Great. Okay, wonderful. And Tyson, let me ask you this. If somebody is experiencing a crisis, they just need to reach out to someone, they're considering suicide, what would you say is the best way someone can seek help in that case?
I think probably the number one thing would be the new 988 crisis line help number. Optum has our own member crisis line as well that you can find on our website at optumidaho.com. But to just definitely reach out, that 988 number has been really successful and a really positive, easier way to engage with, somebody that is there to listen and will get you the help that you need. And I think, like Beth was saying, it can be such an isolating experience to get into a mindset like that, and you're not alone. You're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to help, and it just takes that courageous phone call to admit that you're having a problem and to reach out and ask for it, because it's out there.
One thing I'd like to add about that, there are people who are supported by loved ones, friends and family members, and sometimes when, as a friend or family member, you're struggling with, how to support someone, there's some things that you can do. Know the warning signs of suicide, sudden change in behavior, someone who seems like they are wrapping things up, or they're using language that, I don't even know why I'm here. Don't be afraid to ask the question. I think that's something that, we think we're going to plant this notion of suicide in someone's head by saying, are you thinking about hurting yourself? But you're not. Open that conversation, and then be willing to listen to the answer without judgment, and then sit with someone in that uncomfortable space and work with them to get help. 988 is a great resource. I'm constantly surprised that people haven't heard of it. So we're trying really hard to get that word out. It's a really easy conversation to have. You pick up the phone. You don't have to be suicidal to call. You don't have to be the person who is seeking support, and it's available statewide.
That's great. And I know we have talked about this. Let's just go over that again really quick. 988, who exactly does that connect you to?
Well, first of all, when you call, they will put you through a series of screening questions, and actually you can call and just try it out and without connecting to a person, so you should hang up before. But it will ask you some questions if you prefer to speak to, I believe, veterans support or someone focused on LGBTQ issues.
Yeah, they'll try to funnel you into a lane that would be appropriate for your needs.
Gotcha.
And they will also, according to the area code on your cell phone, try to hook you up with people in the specific area. Now, that's not exact science, because of course, people are moving here and keeping their area codes from other states, but it's a start. So they're going to try to work with you to identify local resources that you can access.
Gotcha. Great stuff. Okay, wonderful. Now, Beth, kind of on that note, recovery. Also a very important topic. What can you tell us about the recovery process? Well,
recovery for everybody looks different. And it's important to note that a lot of substance use issues are hand in hand with mental health issues. So when people are seeking recovery from their mental health issues and having a really hard time figuring things out, they might turn to self-soothing, substances and develop a problem. So when we are talking to people about recovery, we're talking about recovery both from substance issues as well as sometimes from mental health. And we do believe that mental health issues are medical issues, and from which recovery is possible, or at least maintenance is possible. So, a recovery process can look like a number of different things, going through specific treatments. There might be medications. And then support, keeping yourself accountable, reporting into folks, and in your support group, having people who are going through a similar lived experience, talking about, this is what worked for me, this is what my recovery trajectory looks like. Having examples in front of you of people who have been through similar lived experiences and succeeded can be really, really important. And it's also important to know that there's support for family and friends through similar support groups, so that they can get that help that they need to be strong for their loved one who's going through a really tough time.
Great. Now, Tyson, let me ask you on a similar note, and it just like going back to potentially suicide prevention or a mental health crisis with recovery, it's all about how you get started. So how would you say someone that needs help getting into recovery and wants to get better, what can they do to just start the process?
There's so many different ways. There really are. I think a really critical first step is, they always say, like, acknowledging that there's a problem. When things start to feel like this is not what I want anymore, being able to recognize that and acknowledge it, and then taking that next giant step towards telling somebody that you're not okay. I mean, that's really where it starts. And I guess in order to kind of encourage people to take that step, it can be such an isolating experience to suffer with mental health illness, and then to do things like, you know, delve into substance abuse to try to cope. Can be really isolating. And so I would just encourage anyone going through something like that to know that there is a community of people that have gone through similar experiences, and that we're out here waiting for you to come join the family. And that kind of connection that you can get with people that have gone through similar things can start to break that isolation and make you feel like you're a part of something that matters, and the results that can come in early recovery really starts to create this momentum that you start to feel better and your life starts to look different, and it snowballs, and life can look very different in a short period of time if you just take those first steps.
Gotcha. Great. All right. Well, here in Suicide Prevention and Recovery Month in September, of course, very important issues we've talked about today. Is there anything else either of you wanted to add about this subject?
I would say if you are a person who cares about somebody with mental illness, or is in recovery, or is seeking recovery, or perhaps needs to seek recovery but isn't quite at that place yet, there you can play a role as well. And looking up resources, understanding warning signs, understanding treatment options is a big deal. And I would like to say also that if you are an employer, a number of CEOs and employers understand and are recognizing the need for addressing mental illness and issues around it in the workplace. The majority of them are, which is terrific, but employees overwhelmingly still feel that they will suffer stigma, job loss, judgment at work, and don't come forward, which ends up being a huge issue for our workforce, right? When time is lost to dealing with issues around mental illness and substance use and so forth. So if you're an employer, bring in somebody who can speak about these issues. Make it a topic of conversation. Be forthcoming about your own mental health issues or your family's mental health issues. If you're a group that strives for, we give 110%, maybe dial that back a little bit and say, we bring our full selves to the table, and if we can't, we're going to pull back and take care of it, or take care of our family members, and that's okay too. Mm-hmm. So fighting stigma in the workplace is something that anybody can do. Understanding the role that stigma plays in keeping people from coming forth is a huge issue, and it can be culturally much more profound among different communities than it is in some others. We're producing a Stand Up to Stigma mental health conference in November, where we're going to be addressing a lot of these issues, and we welcome providers and community members and family members and people who are on their own recovery journey of all walks of life.
All right. Well, joining me this morning to discuss suicide prevention and recovery has been the Executive Director of NAMI Idaho, Beth Markley, and Peer Navigator with Optum Idaho, Tyson Hawkins. Thanks so much for being here today, both of you, and the very important information.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.